Good morning. I'm here for the vendor meeting.
I see. Do you have an appointment?
I'm on the schedule. Let's proceed.
The bell above the glass door chimed once. Sharp, clean, final. Ava Reynolds froze with one hand still on the clothing rack. The boutique smelled like citrus cleaner and expensive fabric, the kind meant to signal calm and wealth at the same time. Soft jazz floated from hidden speakers. Everything in the store whispered belonging, except the way the silence bent toward her. She felt it before she heard it. The weight of eyes. The pause behind the counter. The way the cashier's smile thinned, like it had been rehearsed for someone else. "Ava, right?" the manager said, though Ava hadn't offered her name. The man stepped closer. Late 40s, perfect beard, navy blazer. His voice stayed low, polite, practiced. The kind of voice that made scenes disappear. "We've had complaints," he continued. "Customers feel uncomfortable." Ava looked around. Two white women pretended not to stare. One clutched her purse tighter, as if realizing too late that the gesture had been seen. "I haven't done anything," Ava said. The manager nodded sympathetically, already done listening. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The words hit her chest harder than a shove. Heat rushed to her ears. This again. Always quiet. Always clean. No slur. No shouting. Just removal. "Is there a reason?" she asked. His eyes flicked to the security guard by the door. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." Ava felt something fracture inside her, not loudly but completely. As she stepped onto the sidewalk, the glass door sealed shut behind her, reflecting her face back at her like evidence. Across the street, a woman lifted a phone and started recording. Ava didn't notice. Not yet. Ava Reynolds had already decided she wouldn't buy anything. She stood between two minimalist racks. Neutral tones, clean lines, prices that dared you to ask questions, and ran her fingers along a linen blazer she didn't need. The fabric was soft. Too soft for the way her shoulders stayed tense. The boutique was quiet in that deliberate way, curated to make people lower their voices without being told. She noticed the shift before anyone spoke. The cashier stopped folding sweaters. The jazz track skipped into a new song. A woman near the mirrors glanced at Ava, then away, then back again. Ava's reflection caught in the glass. Dark curls pulled into a low bun, cream blouse, black slacks. Professional. Neutral. She had learned the uniform young. Still, it wasn't enough. "Excuse me." Ava turned. The man approaching her wore authority like a tailored jacket. His smile was careful, not unkind, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm Mark," he said. "I manage the store." Ava nodded. "Hi." He gestured slightly toward the front. "Could we talk for a moment?" Her stomach tightened. "About what?" "Nothing serious," he replied quickly. "Just a quick conversation." She followed him 3 steps. That was all it took to feel the room rearrange itself around them. The security guard straightened. The cashier pretended to scan something. No one met her eyes. Mark lowered his voice. "We've received a few complaints." Ava blinked. "Complaints about what?" "Some customers feel uncomfortable," he said. "We try to maintain a certain environment here." Ava stared at him. "I'm shopping." "Yes, of course," he said. "But when multiple people express concern, we have to act." "Concern about what?" Her voice stayed level, even as heat crept up her neck. Mark exhaled, patience thinning. "I'm asking you to leave the store." The words landed heavy and unreal. "I haven't done anything wrong," Ava said. "I understand that this feels upsetting," he replied. "But you're making it more difficult." She looked past him, at the woman clutching her purse, at the man by the door whose hand rested too casually near his belt. "So this is it," Ava said quietly. "No reason. No explanation." Mark's smile vanished. "Please don't cause a scene." Ava laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. I'm the scene. Silence answered her. She walked out on her own. The bell chimed again. Behind her, life resumed. On the sidewalk, Ava stopped. Her hands were shaking. She didn't see the phone across the street. But the world did. Ava woke to her phone vibrating against the nightstand like it was trying to escape. She groaned, eyes still closed, and fumbled for it. The screen was lit up with notifications stacked so tightly they blurred into one another. Missed calls, text messages, Instagram alerts, Twitter mentions she didn't remember enabling. Her chest tightened. For a split second, she wondered if something had happened to her mother. Then she read the first text. Janelle, Ava. Please tell me you're okay. Call me now. Ava sat up, heart pounding. She opened Instagram. Her face filled the screen. Frozen mid-step, jaw set, eyes hard. The angle was from across the street, slightly tilted. She recognized the moment instantly. The door behind her. The reflection. The fracture. The caption read, "This black woman was kicked out of a boutique for making customers uncomfortable. Watch how calm she stays." The video had 2.3 million views. Ava's throat went dry. She pressed play. There she was again, walking out, shoulders squared, refusing to run. She watched herself pause on the sidewalk, saw the moment her hands started shaking. The audio caught everything. The bell, the muffled jazz, Mark's voice low and reasonable. "We've had complaints. Please don't cause a scene." The comments flooded in faster than she could read. "This is racism, period. Why do stores still do this in 2026? Notice how polite he is. That's how they get away with it." What did she do before the video started? Maybe customers really were uncomfortable. That one made her flinch. Her phone rang. Janelle's name lit up the screen again. "Ava," Janelle said the second she answered. "Jesus Christ. Are you okay?" I think so," Ava said, though her voice sounded distant to her own ears. "Have you seen it?" "Yes." "Okay. First thing, don't respond to anyone yet. Don't comment. Don't explain." "I didn't even post it," Ava said. "I don't know who did." "It doesn't matter," Janelle replied. "It's out there now. News accounts are sharing it. A blogger just tagged you." Ava swung her legs off the bed. The floor felt cold. "Real. I didn't ask for this." "I know," Janelle said gently. "But it's not nothing anymore." Ava closed her eyes. All her life, moments like that had vanished into thin air. Comment brushed off. A door quietly closed. A smile that said you don't belong without saying anything at all. This time it had been caught, framed, preserved. And she didn't know if that made it better or worse. By noon, the boutique had released a statement. Ava read it on her laptop, jaw clenched. "We strive to create a welcoming environment for all customers. We regret that a recent interaction has been mischaracterized online. Our staff acted in accordance with store policy to ensure the comfort and safety of everyone present. No apology. No name." "She's a recent interaction," Ava muttered. Her inbox chimed. A client she'd been consulting for months wrote, "Hey Ava, hope you're doing well. With everything going on, we're going to pause our collaboration for now. Just feels like a lot of attention." Ava stared at the screen. Another message followed. "Nothing personal." She laughed, short, bitter. "It never is." Her phone rang again. Unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. Then another. And another. A news producer emailed asking for comment. A podcast host asked if she'd share her experience. Someone else asked if she'd felt threatened. Threatened. She replayed the video in her head. The guard. The way Mark's eyes flicked toward him. The unspoken threat dressed up as professionalism. "Yes," she whispered to the empty room. "I did. Her mother called that evening." "I saw the video," her mom said carefully. Ava braced herself. "And," there was a pause. "I hate that you're going through this. I worry." "I know. I don't want them tearing you apart," her mother said. "People can be cruel." "They already were," Ava replied softly. That night, Ava finally posted something herself. Single sentence. I was asked to leave because my presence made someone uncomfortable. This happens more than people think. She didn't add hashtags, didn't tag the store. The response was immediate. Thousands of comments. Support. Page. One message cut through everything. I used to work there. This isn't the first time. Ava stared at the screen, pulse quickening. She typed back slowly. Can we talk? 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Outside her window, the city hummed on, indifferent. Ava leaned back in her chair, exhausted, terrified, and suddenly certain of one thing. They had tried to make her disappear. And instead the world was watching. The law office smelled like burnt coffee and lemon disinfectant, the kind of place that tried to feel neutral and failed. Ava sat on the edge of a vinyl chair, hands folded tight in her lap. Across from her, framed certificates lined the wall. Civil rights, employment law, consumer protection. She read each one twice, as if the words might promise something they couldn't guarantee. You don't have to decide today, the attorney said. Her name was Danielle Moore. Early 40s. Natural hair pulled back, glasses perched low on her nose. Her voice wasn't soft, but it wasn't sharp either. Carried weight without forcing it. I already know what happened to you, Danielle continued. The question is whether you want to do something about it. Ava swallowed. I don't want revenge. Danielle nodded. Good. Because that's not what this is. She slid a printed copy of the boutique statement across the desk. They're hiding behind policy, Danielle said. Words like discretion, environment, customer comfort. Those terms are deliberately vague. So they can mean whatever they want, Ava said. So they can mean whoever they want, Danielle corrected. Ava exhaled slowly. Danielle leaned back. Did anyone tell you specifically what you did wrong? No. Did they accuse you of stealing? No. Did they say you were loud, aggressive, disruptive? Ava shook her head. I was touching a blazer. Danielle gave a humorless smile. Then they didn't remove you for behavior. They removed you for presence. The word landed heavy. Presence, Ava repeated. Which is harder to prove, Danielle said. But not impossible. Ava stared at the desk. They were polite. Danielle snorted. Politeness is their shield. She pulled out another document. Here's how these cases usually go. First, they deny racism outright. Then they frame it as a misunderstanding. Then they say their employees felt threatened. Ava's jaw tightened. Threatened by me. They won't say your name, Danielle replied. But yes, Ava leaned forward. So what does it cost? Danielle didn't answer right away. Time, she said finally. Energy. Money. Your privacy. Your peace. Ava nodded slowly. What about them? Danielle met her eyes. Exposure. Silence stretched between them. I didn't plan to be anyone's example, Ava said. Danielle's voice softened. Most people never do. Ava's phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it. If we proceed, Danielle continued, they'll dig into your life, social media, work history, anything they can twist. I haven't done anything wrong, Ava said. Danielle held her gaze. That has never been the requirement. Ava leaned back, rubbing her temples. I just wanted to shop. I know. And now I'm supposed to what? Represent something. Danielle didn't rush to answer. You represent yourself. The rest comes with it. Ava stood and paced the small room. She thought of the message from the former employee. The purse clutched tighter. The guard's hand near his belt. They were so calm, Ava said. That's what gets me. Like they were doing me a favor. Danielle nodded. Power rarely raises its voice. Ava stopped pacing. If we win, what happens? Danielle shrugged. Best case. Policy changes. Training. Maybe a settlement. Maybe a public apology. And worst case. You become a headline for a week. Then they move on. You don't. Ava closed her eyes. For a moment, she saw herself walking away. Declining interviews. Letting the video fade into internet memory. Taking the next job quietly like she always had. She also saw Mark's face. Practice smile. The certainty. They shouldn't get to do this again, Ava said. Danielle smiled, not triumphantly, but with something like respect. That's usually when people decide. Ava sat back down. What do you need from me? Danielle slid a folder across the desk. Your story. Exactly as it happened. And your permission to make it inconvenient. Ava hesitated, then signed. The first deposition request came 3 days later. Emails followed. Legal language so dense it felt designed to exhaust her. The boutique's lawyers requested extensions. Then requested clarification. Then requested silence. They wanted control. At night, Ava lay awake replaying every moment. Her tone, her posture, her face. She wondered how she would look to strangers dissecting her pain like evidence. One evening, Janelle came over with takeout. You look tired, Janelle said gently. I am. You still sure about this? Ava nodded. I keep thinking, if it was that easy to remove me, how many others walked out without cameras? Janelle was quiet for a moment. Probably a lot. Ava picked at her food. I don't want to be brave. Janelle reached across the table and squeezed her hand. You don't have to be. You just have to stay. Ava looked down at their hands, steadying herself. The boutique called it policy. Ava was starting to understand it was a pattern. And patterns could be proven. The quiet arrived slowly, then all at once. At first, Ava's phone never stopped buzzing. Friends from college. Old co-workers. People she hadn't spoken to in years sending fire emojis and heart fists and I'm so proud of you. She answered when she could. Thanked them. Tried to believe the warmth was real. Then the messages changed. Or maybe they didn't change. Maybe the ones that mattered just arrived later. She was folding laundry when her aunt called. I just wanted to check in, her aunt said, voice overly bright. This whole thing, it's a lot. Ava balanced the phone between her shoulder and ear. It is. I mean, I get why you're upset, her aunt continued. But are you sure it was about race? These days, everything gets labeled so quickly. Ava stopped folding. They asked me to leave for making customers uncomfortable, she said. I was shopping. Well, her aunt said carefully. Stores have the right to refuse service. Ava closed her eyes. So do people have the right to exist? There was a pause. I'm just saying, sometimes it's better not to escalate. After the call ended, Ava sat on the edge of her bed, staring at a half-folded shirt like it had betrayed her. At work, the shift was quieter but sharper. Her manager scheduled a check-in. I support you, he said, hands folded on the desk. I really do. But, Ava asked. But clients are sensitive to optics, he said. And right now you're polarizing. Because I was kicked out of a store. Because it went viral. Ava laughed under her breath. So what do you want me to do? Lie low, he said. Let this blow over. She nodded, already knowing what that meant. Let yourself blow over. At lunch she sat alone. A coworker she'd once vented to about microaggressions walked past without making eye contact. Another gave her a tight smile, like Ava was contagious. That night, Ava scrolled through comments she'd avoided reading before. Why didn't she just leave quietly? Always playing the victim. If she was innocent, why sue? She shut the laptop hard, heart racing. The memories came then, uninvited, sharp. Being followed through a department store at 16. A professor confusing her with the only other black student in the class. A landlord asking if she could keep the noise down before she'd even moved in. Each time she'd swallowed it. Explained it away. Told herself it wasn't worth it. Now, she wondered how much she'd lost by staying quiet. Her mother visited that weekend. They sat at the kitchen table, sunlight stretching between them. You've always been strong, her mother said. But strength isn't the same as rest. I'm tired, Ava admitted. I know. Her mother hesitated. I just don't want this to harden you. Ava looked up. I don't want it to either. But it's doing something, her mother said gently. I see it in your eyes. Ava swallowed. What am I supposed to do? Pretend it didn't happen? No, her mother said quickly. Just remember who you were before it. Ava thought about that later alone. Who had she been before? Someone careful, someone agreeable, someone who didn't make waves. The thought unsettled her. That night she met Danielle for coffee. You're losing people, Danielle said plainly. Ava nodded. I didn't think it would hurt like this. It always does, Danielle replied. Systemic harm thrives on isolation. If they can make you feel alone, they don't have to win legally. So this is part of it. Yes. Ava stared into her cup. Sometimes I wonder if I imagined it. If I'm exaggerating. Danielle leaned forward. Did you imagine the guard? The wording? The statement they released? No. Then stop gaslighting yourself. They're doing enough of that for you. Ava let out a shaky breath. Danielle continued. What you're feeling isn't doubt. It's grief. Grief for what? For the illusion that fairness would protect you. Ava's throat tightened. Outside the cafe, people laughed. Cars passed. Life continued. Inside, Ava felt something settle. Not peace but clarity. The silence around her wasn't accidental. It was familiar. And this time, she wasn't going to mistake it for neutrality. The boutique's new campaign launched on a Monday. Ava knew because her phone lit up with screenshots before she'd finished her coffee. A smiling black model stood in the store window, arm linked with a white woman, both laughing like they'd just shared a secret. The caption read, "See you. We celebrate you." Under it, the brand announced a partnership with a local non-profit and a renewed commitment to inclusivity. Ava stared at the screen until her coffee went cold. They're burying me, she said when she got Danielle on the phone. They're reframing you, Danielle replied. Important difference. It feels the same. Of course it does, Danielle said. They're trying to turn a pattern into a misunderstanding and a victim into an outlier. By noon, opinion pieces started popping up. Maybe the store mishandled the situation, but calling it racism goes too far. Businesses can't be expected to control how customers feel. Cancel culture claims another small business. Small business. Ava laughed out loud in her empty apartment. They have 5 locations and private investors. She forwarded the articles to Danielle. Danielle replied with one line. We push back with facts. The former employee finally agreed to talk that afternoon. Her name was Lena. Early 20s. Nervous voice. They spoke over encrypted chat at first, then switched to a call. I quit because I couldn't take it anymore, Lena said quickly like she'd rehearsed. They always said it wasn't about race. But it always was. Ava closed her eyes. How many times? Lena exhaled. I stopped counting. Usually it was customer comfort or store vibe. We were told to watch certain people more closely. Certain people, Ava repeated. Black customers, Lena said. Especially women. Especially if they didn't look rich enough. Ava felt her hands curl into fists. Did management know? They trained us, Lena said. They just didn't put it in writing. Ava muted the call for a second and pressed her forehead to the table. When she unmuted, her voice was steady. Would you be willing to say this publicly? There was a long pause. I'm scared, Lena admitted. I still need references. Ava swallowed. I understand. After the call ended, Ava sat in silence, the weight of it pressing down on her chest. They'll always have more money, she said later, pacing Danielle's office. More lawyers. More reach. Yes, Danielle said. But they don't have your receipts. Ava stopped pacing. What receipts? Danielle smiled thinly. Your timeline. Your emails. Your work calendar. The fact that you were in that store for 7 minutes before they removed you. Ava frowned. 7. Danielle slid a document across the desk. Security footage timestamp. We subpoenaed it. Ava stared. They said customers complained. In 7 minutes, Danielle said. On a weekday afternoon. Ava let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. That matters, Danielle continued. Because now we're not arguing feelings. We're arguing plausibility. That evening Ava posted again. This time it was longer. She laid out the timeline. The lack of explanation. The store's statement versus what actually happened. She didn't use the word racist once. She didn't have to. The response was immediate, and louder. Journalists began asking sharper questions. Commenters pointed out inconsistencies in the boutique's messaging. Someone dug up an old Yelp review describing a similar incident. Then another. And another. By nightfall a hashtag was trending, one Ava hadn't created. Ava sat on her couch, laptop balanced on her knees, heart racing. This is getting big, Janelle said over FaceTime. I know. You okay? Ava hesitated. Ask me again tomorrow. The boutique responded with a second statement. This one mentioned Ava by name. They said they were disappointed she was pursuing a divisive narrative. They emphasized their charitable efforts. They implied she was exploiting the moment. Reading it felt like being shoved politely. Danielle called within minutes. They're escalating, Danielle said. Which means they're nervous. Ava laughed weakly. They called me divisive. Danielle's voice sharpened. They're trying to isolate you again. Make this about your character instead of their conduct. Is it working? Not the way they hoped. Ava opened her email. 3 new messages sat at the top. Former cashier here. Security guard from another location. This happens. I was removed last year. I thought it was my fault. Her chest tightened. They hadn't just erased her. They'd erased all of them. Ava typed back carefully, promising confidentiality, connecting them to Danielle. Later, alone, Ava finally cried. Not the quiet, careful kind. The kind that shook her ribs and left her throat raw. She cried for the girl she'd been at 16. For Lena. For every person who'd walked out believing they were the problem. When the tears slowed, something else remained. Resolve. They wanted a counter-narrative. She was done letting them write it without her. And for the first time since the bell chimed behind her, Ava felt the balance begin, just slightly, to shift. The invoices arrived before the nightmares did. Ava opened her email one morning to see Danielle's firm header and felt her stomach drop. Legal language stacked neatly into totals. Hours billed. Filings processed. Motions prepared. Each line item carried a quiet warning. Justice was not free. She forwarded the email to a folder she'd labeled reality and closed her laptop without replying. By noon, she'd lost another client. This one didn't bother with euphemisms. We respect what you're standing for, the message read, but our board doesn't want to be associated with controversy. Ava reread the sentence twice. Associated. As if injustice were a stain that spread by proximity. She typed back, deleted it, typed again. Understood. Thank you for letting me know. She hit send and stared at the wall until the letters blurred. That night, sleep refused to come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the store door ceiling shut, heard the bell, felt the heat in her ears. She replayed conversations she hadn't had, wittier comebacks, sharper questions, ways she might have forced Mark to say the quiet part out loud. At 3 a.m., she gave up and scrolled. The comments had turned meaner. She's dragging this out for attention. If it was really racism, why wait to sue? Another grifter. Her chest tightened. She shut the app, heart racing. In the bathroom mirror, her eyes looked older. Shadows sat where sleep should have been. This is temporary, she told her reflection. The words felt thin. At the next meeting, Danielle didn't sugarcoat it. They're going to pressure you financially, Danielle said. That's strategy. Ava nodded. It's working. Is it making you want to stop? Ava hesitated. It's making me tired. Danielle leaned forward. That's the point. They went over budgets, contingency plans, options Ava hadn't wanted to consider, settlements that came with non-disclosure agreements, apologies without accountability. They'll offer you an exit that looks like relief, Danielle warned. But it comes with silence. Ava closed her eyes. Silence had always been the price of survival. She was tired of paying it. I want them to change, Ava said. Not just write a check. Danielle nodded slowly. Then you need to be prepared to lose more before you gain anything. The anxiety crept in quietly after that. In grocery store lines, in traffic, in the shower. Her chest would tighten without warning. Her breath would shorten. Once, in the middle of a meeting, her hands started shaking so badly she had to excuse herself. She sat in her car afterward, forehead pressed to the steering wheel, counting breaths. This is not happening, she whispered. But it was. Janelle noticed first. You're not eating, Janelle said one evening, pushing a plate toward her. And you flinch every time your phone buzzes. Ava forced a smile. Occupational hazard. Janelle didn't smile back. You don't get bonus points for suffering. Ava poked at the food. If I stop, they win. No, Janelle said gently. If you break, they don't have to. The word stuck with her. Ava started therapy the following week. She hadn't planned to. It felt indulgent, almost embarrassing, to admit she needed help. But when the therapist asked her why she'd come, the answer spilled out before she could filter it. I'm afraid I'm disappearing, Ava said. The therapist nodded. In what way? I'm here, Ava said. Everywhere. Online. In the news. In meetings. But I don't feel like myself anymore. They talked about hypervigilance. About racialized stress. About the toll of being both witness and evidence. You're carrying the weight of more than one moment, the therapist said. You're carrying a history. Ava's throat tightened. I didn't ask for it. No, the therapist agreed. But you're responding to it. Outside the office, Ava sat on a bench and watched people pass. No one recognized her. No one pointed. For a brief second she felt anonymous again. It scared her how much she wanted that. The boutique's lawyers requested mediation soon after. Danielle laid out the offer over speakerphone. They're proposing a settlement, Danielle said. Confidential. No admission of wrongdoing. Monetary compensation. Ava closed her eyes. And policy. Revised language. Internal training. No oversight. So nothing enforceable. Danielle paused. Correct. Ava pictured Lena's voice. The messages from strangers who'd thought it was their fault. The reviews buried and ignored. She shook her head. No. Danielle didn't argue. Okay. The call ended. Ava's phone stayed silent. Later that night she stood on her balcony, city lights blinking below. The air was cool. Honest. She thought about the cost again, not just money but trust. Sleep. Safety. She had lost work. Lost relationships. Lost the luxury of being unseen. But she had gained something too, though it felt fragile and sharp. She had gained truth. Ava pulled her sweater tighter and let the night air steady her breathing. They don't get to decide what I'm worth, she said quietly. The words didn't erase the fear. But they gave her something to stand on. The email arrived at 6:12 a.m. Subject line plain enough to be missed. Former operations manager. Confidential. Ava stared at it from her kitchen table, coffee cooling beside her. She didn't open it right away. Experience had taught her that hope could be reckless. When she finally clicked, the message unfolded slowly, like a confession that had been waiting for permission. I've been following your case. I worked at the boutique for 6 years. What happened to you was not an exception. It was routine. Ava's breath caught. The sender, Michael, wrote carefully, as if every sentence had been weighed. He described weekly meetings where problem customers were discussed. How certain shoppers were flagged for heightened observation. How store managers were praised for keeping the brand image intact. Brand image, Ava thought bitterly. Another clean phrase. Another quiet weapon. Michael attached files. Training slides. Internal emails. A spreadsheet with coded notes. Initials, dates, short descriptions. As to leave. Guard present. Customer discomfort. Ava's name appeared once. Her hands shook as she forwarded everything to Danielle. Danielle called within minutes. "This is it," Danielle said, voice tight. "This establishes pattern." Ava sank into her chair. "Are we allowed to use it?" "If he's willing to testify," Danielle said. "Yes." Another pause. "But it puts him at risk." Ava swallowed. "I know." By afternoon, Michael agreed to meet. They sat in a quiet conference room, the kind designed to absorb secrets. Michael was thinner than Ava expected, shoulders hunched, eyes tired. "I didn't speak up before," he said, not meeting her gaze. "I told myself I needed the job." Ava nodded. "I told myself the same thing about silence." He looked up then. "I'm sorry." She believed him. As word spread quietly through legal channels, something shifted in public too. A reporter published a piece connecting multiple incidents to the same chain of stores. Not accusing, just asking questions, laying timelines side by side. Another outlet followed. Then another. The boutique's social media went dark. Their investors released a statement expressing concern. Ava watched it unfold from her couch, laptop balanced on her knees, heart pounding with a strange mix of relief and dread. "They're circling," Janelle said over the phone. "I know. Does it feel real yet?" Ava thought about that. "It feels like the truth finally has witnesses." The boutique responded the next day, not with marketing this time but lawyers. They denied the document's relevance, questioned Michael's credibility, claimed disgruntlement. Danielle was ready. "He has corroboration," Danielle said. "Dates. Consistency. And me," Ava added quietly. "Yes," Danielle said. "And you." Ava's inbox filled again, but the tone had changed. Journalists asked about systems, not feelings. Viewers asked about policy, not behavior. People shared their own stories without apology. One message stood out. "Thought I was crazy. Thank you for proving I wasn't." Ava stared at the screen for a long time. That night, sleep came in fragments. She dreamed of doors, some closing, some opening. In one, she stood in the boutique again, but this time the walls were transparent. Everyone could see inside. She woke with her heart racing, but not from fear. From momentum. The deposition was scheduled for the following week. Mark was there. He looked smaller than she remembered. Tired. His navy blazer had been replaced with gray. When he avoided her eyes, Ava felt something loosen in her chest. Under oath, his words were careful, evasive. "I don't recall. I was following protocol. We prioritize customer experience." Danielle's questions were precise. "Can you define customer discomfort? Is it written anywhere? Why was Ms. Reynolds removed within 7 minutes?" Mark shifted, whetted, hesitated. "I can't speak to the exact timing." "But you don't deny it," Danielle pressed. "No." Silence filled the room. Later, alone in the hallway, Ava leaned against the wall, legs weak. "That was brutal," Janelle said, handing her water. "It was necessary," Ava replied. The boutique's board announced an internal review 2 days later. Then came the leak. An anonymous source released an audio clip from a management meeting, voices discussing optics and undesirable energy. The recording was grainy but unmistakable. Public reaction was swift. Sponsors pulled out. A senior executive resigned. Then another. The boutique closed 2 locations, temporarily. Ava watched the news from her living room, wrapped in a blanket she didn't remember grabbing. She felt no joy, no triumph, just a deep, bone-level exhaustion, and a strange, steady calm. Danielle called that evening. "They want to reopen settlement talks," Danielle said. "With conditions." What kind of conditions? External oversight. Policy transparency. Public acknowledgement. Ava closed her eyes. They're still not saying the word, she said. No, Danielle agreed. But they're saying everything around it. Ava thought of the first day. A bell. The sidewalk. The reflection in the glass. I want it on record, Ava said. What happened to me? And why? Danielle smiled softly. That can be arranged. Later, standing at her window, Ava watched the city glow. She felt changed, not hardened but sharpened. They had tried to make her small. Instead, they had exposed themselves. And once seen, they could not pretend anymore. The boutique never looked the same after that week. News crews camped outside the flagship store, their cameras capturing every reflective glass panel, every polished floor. Inside, lights flickered in the deserted hallways where mannequins now stood like silent witnesses. Executives shuffled through offices in muted panic, papers clutched like shields. The brand's polished image had fractured. The veneer of sophistication cracked enough for the public to see the skeleton beneath. Ava watched it all unfold from her apartment 2 blocks away, laptop perched on her knees. The internal review documents Danielle had secured sat in a folder labeled Evidence. Emails detailing years of discriminatory customer comfort protocols. Training manuals highlighting who should be observed more closely. Names, dates, and meeting notes. The proof was undeniable, and the world was finally seeing it. The boutique's PR team attempted damage control. Press releases claimed reform, cultural sensitivity training, and renewed commitments to diversity. But every word rang hollow. Social media buzzed with screenshots, audio leaks, and testimonies. The narrative had shifted. The public wasn't listening to polite words. They were reading the evidence. One executive resigned quietly, citing personal reasons. Another followed. Investors withdrew funding. Sponsors canceled contracts. The stores closed indefinitely, citing operational challenges. In board meetings, whispers of lawsuits, financial penalties, and brand damage dominated conversations. Every step they had taken to control perception had backfired. Ava, watching the dominoes fall, felt no joy. She felt the weight of justice realized slowly, painfully, imperfectly. She remembered the first day. The bell, the polite words, the heavy silence. The humiliation. The subtle, systemic power that had tried to erase her presence. Now, the same system she'd confronted was unraveling, and the individuals who wielded that power faced consequences. Her phone buzzed. It was Lena, the former employee who had helped corroborate her story. They finally admitted there's a problem, Lena said, voice trembling. I can't believe it. Neither can I, Ava replied, looking out at the darkening city skyline. But it's not just about us. I know, Lena whispered. It's for everyone who never got to speak. Ava thought about the countless silent moments. Black women followed through stores, warned about their tone, asked to leave without explanation. The quiet oppression that had shaped so many lives. She had made noise, documented it, and exposed the pattern. But victory was heavy. The boutique announced a settlement the following week. Financial compensation was part of it, but the most significant terms were enforceable oversight, mandatory sensitivity training, and public acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Mark, the manager who had removed her that day, faced disciplinary action and eventually resigned. The chain's reputation was damaged irreparably, investors and customers wary of returning. Even with victory, Ava felt the lingering ache of what had been taken from her. Time, trust, peace of mind. Sleepless nights replayed the bell over and over. She had confronted systemic injustice and exposed it to the light, but scars remained. Yet there was also something new. Quiet strength rooted in action. Witnessing change, holding power accountable, and refusing to internalize blame had sharpened her. She realized the fight had been bigger than one store, bigger than a viral video. It was about visibility, about demanding fairness, about reclaiming space that society had tried to deny her. She leaned back in her chair and exhaled. The city hummed below, indifferent yet alive. She could see the boutique from her window, shuttered and empty, the reflection of her own resilience mirrored in its dark glass. Janelle called again, excited this time. "They're actually doing it," she said. "Oversight, resignations, everything." Ava smiled faintly. "Yes, but it's costly. And it's far from perfect." "Still," Janelle said, "you did it." "Yes," Ava replied, "but that doesn't erase the cost." For a long moment, she sat in silence, listening to the city breathe. Justice had been served, but the path had been painful. And it was exactly the way it needed to be. Deliberate, visible, undeniable. She had made them accountable. She had made the system pause. She had claimed her story and her presence back. And even though the fight had left bruises that no one would see, Ava felt the first flicker of peace. The bell had rung once in that boutique months ago. Now, the echo of her presence resonated louder than any chime. Months had passed since the boutique's collapse. Ava Reynolds stood outside the same store she had been asked to leave, the glass doors reflecting the late afternoon sun. They were locked now, a temporary closure plaque taped to the front. The street hummed with ordinary life. People walking dogs, cars rolling past, cafe patrons chatting. But for Ava, every detail carried weight. She inhaled deeply, feeling the city air fill her lungs, steadying herself. She had changed. The experience had been exhausting, emotionally and professionally. She had lost clients, endured sleepless nights, felt the sting of public scrutiny. Yet she had also gained something immeasurable: clarity, resilience, and the knowledge that her presence mattered. Ava reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small notebook. Names, dates, events. Her meticulous records of everything that had transpired. She had refined them, shared them when necessary, but mostly kept them for herself, proof of her own endurance, and a map of the path she had carved through injustice. She glanced at the door again. The boutique's interior was dark, empty of mannequins, no jazz playing, no polished floors, just a hollow echo of its former self. Ava's mind flashed to the day she had been removed. Mark's polite words, the security guard, the heavy silence, and she shivered not from fear, but from the memory of violation. "Ready!" Janelle's voice broke through her thoughts. Ava turned to see her friend standing beside her, carrying 2 coffees. She smiled faintly, grateful for the grounding presence. "As ready as I'll ever be," Ava said. She took a slow sip, letting the warmth of the coffee settle in her hands. They walked together to the entrance. Ava's reflection in the glass looked like the same person, but stronger, steadier, more determined. The woman who had once been removed, silenced, isolated, now returned not as a victim, but as someone claiming her space back. She pressed her hand to the glass, feeling the coolness beneath her fingers. This wasn't about shopping anymore. It wasn't about confrontation. It was about visibility, acknowledgement, and reclaiming control. Ava had launched her own consulting firm in the months since, helping companies understand diversity, equity, and accountability. Her experience had become a tool, not a scar. A small crowd had gathered across the street. Reporters, passers-by. Ava didn't know. She didn't care. Her focus was internal, deliberate. She exhaled, straightened her shoulders, and took a step forward. The doors slid open automatically. Light spilled into the entryway, illuminating the dust motes that hung like tiny particles of memory. Ava walked in deliberately, each step echoing softly. The store was empty, quiet, stripped of its previous energy. She moved toward the center, letting herself occupy the space fully, feeling the weight of her own presence fill it. "This is mine," she whispered to no one. A statement meant more for herself than anyone else. She reached the counter where Mark had stood months ago. Nothing remained of his presence, nothing of the authority that had once displaced her. She placed her notebook on the counter, not as an accusation, not as a threat, but as a record, a symbol of accountability. Janelle stood nearby, smiling softly. Ava could feel the vibrations of her own heartbeat, steady now, centered. "This feels different," Janelle said. It is, Ava replied. I'm not here for approval. I'm here to remind them and myself that I exist, that I have always existed, that no one gets to erase that. She walked through the boutique slowly, touching the racks that had once held garments she would never buy. She ran her hand over a polished wooden display table, imagining the conversations, the silent exclusions, the weight of what had happened. The air smelled faintly of cleaner and dust. The space was empty, but it was no longer oppressive. She had made it safe for herself in her mind. Ava paused by the window, looking out at the street. People passed without noticing her, yet somehow everything felt different. The world outside was the same, but she had changed. She carried with her months of struggle, resilience, and proof that justice, while delayed and imperfect, was achievable. Her phone buzzed. Another notification. Another article about the boutique's settlements and ongoing policy reforms. Ava smiled faintly. The public narrative had shifted. The abusers were exposed, the patterns documented, and the system, flawed as it was, had been forced to respond. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the sunlight warm her face. Pain, cost, and struggle had marked her. But so had triumph, persistence, and self-respect. Ava turned to leave, notebook in hand, her steps light but deliberate. She walked past the registers, past the empty racks, and toward the door. Each step was a reclamation, a testament. The bell above the door chimed once more, sharp, clear, final, and this time it echoed not as removal but as arrival. Outside, Janelle fell into step beside her. "You okay?" she asked. Ava nodded, a small smile touching her lips. "I'm better than okay. I'm me." She looked back at the boutique one last time. The glass reflected her face, determined and resolute. She didn't need anyone to validate it. She had witnessed the fall, the exposure, the accountability, and she had survived. That was enough. The street hummed, indifferent but moving forward. Ava kept walking, each step grounded in the knowledge that she had reclaimed her space, her voice, and her story. The world had watched, and now she was free, not unscarred but unbowed. She didn't look back again. She walked forward, and she was finally home.